In our film clip, Rocky stated it isn't how hard you hit, but how hard you can get hit and still get up. Life is going to hit you hard. That's from the 2006 movie Rocky Balboa, not to be confused with the better 1976 movie Rocky. But there's a lesson here. First, let me read out of Philippians chapter 1, verses 3 through 6. It's a well-known passage. I thank my God every time I remember you. In all of my prayers for all of you, I always pray with joy, because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. There's one thing that I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about. Is for some reason most people think that life should be easy. A lot of what we see in our streets today, I think, is at least partially driven by this idea that life should be easy. One thing I hope we all understand is perseverance pays. The reward does not go to the prettiest person, thankfully. The reward does not go to the most talented. The reward does not even go to the wealthiest. We think it does. It goes to the one who just doesn't quit. I combed through some sources and got some quotes to illustrate this fact. The man who moves a mountain begins by carrying away very small stones, said Confucius. One of my favorite people, Winston Churchill, said, if you find yourself going through hell, keep going. Thomas Edison said this, many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Now, I don't know about how your life is. That's what I found to be true. Often when I go home, I'm going down, 60 and 83, and I get to the railroad track crossing at Diamond Lake Road right by Las Palmas. And there'll be weeks where I get the train every day. And I immediately have the decision. The decision is, do I wait for the train or do I turn around? And I can kind of get around it two different ways, but I kind of have to go out of my way a little bit. I don't know about you, but here's what happens to me. The time I decide to stay and wait it out, it's 20 more minutes. And when I decide to turn around, to go around, as soon as I made that U-turn, I see the gates go up in my rearview mirror. Invariably. It's often when we're closest to finally breaking through when we decide we've had enough. Here's another quote. Real courage is when you know you're licked before you even begin, but you begin anyway and see it through no matter what. That was said by Atticus Finch in the book To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. My favorite writer, and I really mean my favorite writer, the last 100 years, every single president has hired teams of speechwriters that together, writing together in a collaborative fashion, they hope to get half as good as Abraham Lincoln was by himself, alone. Abe Lincoln said, I admit that I'm a slow walker, but I never walk backwards. A gentleman by the name of Randy Pausch wrote this, the brick walls are often there for a reason. They're not there to keep us out. The brick walls are simply there to give us a chance to show how badly we want something. Because the brick walls are there to stop the people who don't really want it. They're there to stop the other people, not you. The writer H.G. Wells wrote, if you fell down yesterday, stand up today. See, most people fail not because they're not talented enough, not because of a host of reasons. It's because they stop, they quit when they get met with resistance. I saw a little special this week. It was only about 5 minutes long about a guy in a pickup truck. And it kind of started off with him, and I looked in the seat next to him on this little video, and he had a scuba gear with him. I was going, okay, where's he going? Oh, he's going to the ocean, of course. No. He was going to a series of golf courses. And he would go to the ponds and lakes by the green. He'd put on a scuba gear, and he would dive in, and he would come out with a bag of golf balls. And he took it to his warehouse, where he had a machine that cleans them up and polishes them. And then he sells them on his website, bustinballs.com. And then that's what he does for a living. He makes $100,000 a year from putting on his scuba gear and diving in ponds for golf balls. No one would have told him that's a good idea. Ever. So, here's my challenge to you. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to start some great thing. Don't be afraid to do something wonderful for the Lord or to cross the street and start a new relationship. Just promise me one thing, and that you will get up one more time than you fail. There's one other thing we do. Yes, perseverance pays. We need to remember that perfection's not the goal. There's a saying, it's one of my favorites. Ask my wife. The enemy of the good is the perfect, not the bad. See, we often judge ourselves by an impossible standard. If something is not exactly right, we hide it. Or if we don't think we're exactly right, we hide ourselves. The example I used is, the year was about 1979. I was 15 years old. Freshman year, maybe sophomore. And like some people that age, I had acne. Not exceptionally bad, but I had some problem areas. Like right here in that crease, or on the forehead, or right here on the bridge of the nose. And I wouldn't have many, but the ones I had put Mount St. Helens to shame. And so they had this little cream product called Clearasil. They still have it. And about that time, they came out with a new form of Clearasil. It was flesh-colored. Now, Clearasil is supposed to be a medicine that clears it up. But at that stage, flesh-colored Clearasil was male-approved makeup. And if you just dabbed it on enough, you'd think you'd cover up the pimple. But all it looked like was a clay sculpture coming out of my face. But I thought I was fooling people. We've made this same mistake in the church in times before, and sometimes still do. We talk in language where the goal of the Christian life is some sort of objective perfection. We hear that and we think mistake-free. As if that's even possible. So what we end up doing is, we're confronted with our mistake, or confronted where we fall short of perfection, and then we end up feeling defeated. And we give up. I had a conversation yesterday morning up in the office with a gentleman he'll tell you, I am an alcoholic. We talked about it for over an hour. He said, by the way, I'm celebrating my 23rd year of sobriety. And I said, congratulations. And he said, but you know what? After 23 years, you'd think that I was kind of past it. He goes, I'm not. It's there every day. I just feel it weighing on me. And I said, well, have you learned what your triggers are? And he goes, oh, absolutely. And he said, it's the same trigger for me as it is for everybody else. Pride. He said, either I get to think I'm so great that I don't have any problems and I can handle everything, and obviously I can't. But he said, that's not really the main one. The main one is the backside of pride. And that is, after 23 years, I think I should be past this. I should be doing better. And I start to feel defeated. And I start to get down on myself. So much to the point where then I need the little dopamine kick that the alcohol gives me. And I want to do it. That's kind of the backside of pride. We feel defeated because we think if I were a Christian, I wouldn't struggle with the other drivers on the tri-state. If I were a better Christian, I wouldn't have just been a little short with the teller at the bank. If I were a better Christian, I wouldn't have been tempted to lie about my taxes. If I were a better Christian, and all of us are tempted to lie about our taxes. Let's just establish that right now. And Larry is correct. We are close enough. We're not in Wisconsin, but we can smell the sweet air of freedom from here. We think if I can't get it right every time, why even bother? I'll just give up. Here's the truth of the matter. The goal is not perfection. The goal is always faithfulness. Are you married? The goal is not perfection. The goal is faithfulness. Are you a parent? And by the way, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. I mean it. Of all the names, of all the titles that I've been addressed in all my life, the best one is dad. Are you a parent? The goal is not perfection. The goal is faithfulness. In everything of value, in every area of life, the value does not derive from perfection, except for one thing, probably a diamond. 35 years ago, when I was 34 married, 35, I was adding the year for like the engagement. When I was searching for the best cubic diamond for my wife. The perfection in that is what gives it the value. Everything else, faithfulness is the value, not perfection. Thomas Edison is almost a definition of perseverance. He was considered unteachable at a young age. So was Winston Churchill, by the way, and a few other people. The inventor went on to eventually create the electric light bulb. For a number of years, word got out what he was doing, and he was starting to get some bad press for being a failure. And at the end of that, he simply said, "I'm not a failure. I merely found 1,000 ways to not build a light bulb." In more recent times, in 1965, there was a student at Yale University named Frederick Smith. He was in a business class, and he wrote a term paper that went on to invent an industry. In the paper, he laid out the logistical challenges that new companies faced in this new technology industry. Most air freight shippers relied on passenger routes and passenger airplanes. But those didn't make economic sense for most shipments, especially urgent ones. So he wrote a paper where he specifically designed a company in the paper to accommodate time-sensitive shipments like medicine, computer parts, electronics, important documents. Smith's professor at Yale thought it didn't make sense and gave him a C, because you wouldn't need a company like that. Well, in 1971, young Frederick Smith started that company that we now know as FedEx. And I would have loved to have been one of his original investors. I would be pastoring First Church of Nazarene in St. Andrews, Scotland today if that was the case. No, I wouldn't, because then I'd have to be divorced, and that wouldn't work either. So, perfection gets in the way. The question we always have is, will we be faithful? Philippians told us a very important truth, and that is this, that he who began a good work in you, is not thinking about bringing it to completion. He who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. God is faithful. If it does not happen in my life, it will not be because God stepped away. It'll be because I stepped away. God's faithfulness is always limited, but it's limited by my willingness to stay within the range of His grace. Here's the good news, and it is really good news today. We do not need perfection to stay within the boundaries of grace. There have been people in the past that have erred in that direction. We need willingness. Think about our kids for a second. Sometimes in life, there's times of tension with siblings or parents or children. And as a parent, if there's a child that's a little astray or a little estranged, we will do everything we can to keep the road back open. Always. It's our prayer. It's our thought. We think about it when we wake up. Think about it when we go to bed. Think about it when we're taking a shower. It's never far from us. At times in our past, we have acted like God is waiting for us to step off the line so He can close the door. And that's not the window. I think of the parable of the prodigal son. The father is looking off in the distance, waiting for that form to appear, and then runs to welcome them back. That's a better picture. Now, let me be perfectly honest. I believe that we have human freedom. It is possible for us to walk away from grace. But I believe that grace is far more powerful and far more pervasive than we typically give it credit for. And I'm thankful for that tension. Well, Pastor, when is it? Where is that line? I don't know, and it's not mine to know, which is why we're not in that business anyway. But what if I really messed up? Keep a repentant spirit. Be open all the time. Be sensitive all the time. Be willing to listen to His Spirit all the time. Be ready to ask for forgiveness all the time. The Spirit-filled life is not a perfect life, but the Spirit-filled life is a sensitive life and a self-aware life. Pure in heart is not perfection. Pure in heart is a willingness to follow and an open-hearted attitude toward God. It's a purity of intention, a willingness to follow, a decision to keep our heads turned this way and not that way. In our film clip, Rocky stated it isn't how hard you hit, but how hard you can get hit and still get up. Life is going to hit you hard. The question is, will we keep going? We spend a lot of our times praying for decisions that we see coming. Oh, what house am I going to buy? What car am I going to buy? Oh, there's 2 jobs. I want to do the job that's in God's will. I'm not putting any of that down. But I don't think those are the big decisions of life. The big decisions of life are those things that we have no ability to see coming. 5 months ago, on January 21st, nobody saw this coming. Nobody. If I'd have told you January 21st, hey, 4 months from now, you can't go anywhere inside unless you're wearing a mask. There's one door you got to go in, one door you got to come out, because you won't be able to cross people and say hi. By the way, when you get to June, oh yeah, you can go out to eat, but you'll be asking not what time you're open, but tell me about your umbrellas on your outside tables. Are they nice? Are they shady? That'll be your question. You'd have said you're crazy. Life is going to hit you hard. I think it's also true with your walk with Christ. Life is just relentless. The good news is that Christ is not looking for reasons to disqualify us from the journey. In fact, He's using a whole lot of grace to see if He can keep us on the road. He does want us to get rid of anything that entangles and makes our journey difficult. My simple request to you is, if this has been a hard month, if you've tripped up recently, if you've fallen flat, any of those things, I'm begging you, please, get back up. Just one more time. Get back up.